Let's talk some Texas Longhorn recruiting because it was a week of highs and lows for Texas. And yet, they're no stranger to these mega recruitments. And this week had a little of everything. Now, they did land in-state corner Cade Phillips. He commits to the Horns. That was big. But they miss out on in-state wide receiver Doran Moore. He does not commit to the Horns. We're going to talk through it with Inside Texas recruiting analyst Justin Wells. But first, Texas fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. We are the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. All right, let's bring in Justin Wells, and we're going to start with Doran Moore. What happened? Because we talked all summer. It seemed like in the spring it was trending in Texas' direction. It seemed like in the summer they had a stranglehold on this thing, and then it goes sideways, and he commits to Oregon on July 4th. What happened?
Yeah, that's a bad beat for the Texas faithful because everything lined up for Texas. It's one of those things where, if all those things happen, it's almost, you felt almost assured, okay, this was the next step. But Doran really wanted to blaze his own path. He really wanted to kind of do his own thing. And so at the end of the day, that meant going to the other side of the country to play football. Instead of playing around his family and his friends and with some of his family and friends, he decided to blaze his on path and head up to the Pacific Northwest. And you can't blame him because Oregon is super hot right now. They are doing a lot of good on the recruiting trail. You have to give Dan Lanning and Rashad Samples and Will Stein and those guys a ton of credit. They are doing really well. And Doran, when he went up there for that official, he just felt at home. He just felt comfortable. But ultimately, I think Texas was as much as you could do. They were up there as much as you can do. The only thing more would be to probably break the budget from an NIL standpoint, and I don't think Sark wanted to do that. I know how much they value Doran, but, I don't think they're going to let a player set the market. And so at the end of the day, I think he was comfortable going up there. I think he enjoyed everything about Oregon, but this came down to NIL, and I think that's why he's an Oregon Duck.
And you thought with Texas and the lineup of Lambos, and I didn't see them losing an NIL battle, but here we are with Doran Moore. Now, they also missed on Riley Pedan, one of the top linebackers in America, just borderline 5-star prospect from the state of Texas. He commits to Ohio State. Now, this one was trending to Ohio State late, but which is a bigger loss, do you think? Doran Moore or Riley Pedan?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think the two defensive linemen they lost in the last 2 weeks are worse than Doran Moore and Riley Pedan and Josiah Sharma and Zion Williams. But with those two, I'd probably lean a little bit more towards Doran because I think they have a solid base of linebacker in the program right now, and they've got a couple. They got one committed already, and so with Pedan, Texas was the leader by far, according to him, for the longest. They were an early evaluation. They really set the tone in that recruitment. Johnny Nansen did a great job. Steve Sarkisian did a great job, but also Pedan was closest to Jeff Choate when he left to take the Nevada head coaching job. I think that made Nansen have to make up a little bit of slack, right. Which, in all instances, everyone within the program kind of thought that that's where they were. Takes the official visit. There's rumors about how he didn't enjoy it as much as others. There was rumors that, he could be looking a little bit more out of state. But just like Doran Moore, I think this recruitment came down to NIL as well. I think it came down to, Texas having a number that's always going to be comparable to any other team or program in the country. And maybe Ohio State decided to up that thing. And what we're seeing, I don't think you're necessarily seeing it from the players. I think you're seeing it from agents. I think you're seeing it from parents. I think those are the ones that is more involved in this than the kids are, and probably safely in that regard. And so when it came down to it, Pedajon's a guy that I still think makes sense at Texas. Like, he's going to be a guy that I think Texas is going to keep recruiting, keep pushing, try to get him on campus. And when you talk about flip guys down the road, it's all hypothetical. I'm not sure Doran is in that state of mind where they could possibly flip him. With Pedan, I think there's a chance down the road. Now, that's a long ways, and this is a marathon, not a sprint. But again, I think this is where NIL reared its ugly head, and Ohio State was just a little bit better on that regard.
Yeah, but Texas is going to go win their NIL battles, and one that I feel good about winning right now is Jamie French. We're talking about the wide receiver out of the state of Florida. Do you still, with everything that's happened with Doran Moore, and we know Jamie French and Doran Moore are great friends, not necessarily meaning that they want to play at the same place, but do you think Doran Moore going to Oregon will have any impact on Jamie French?
No. I think Jamie French in Texas have made sense since April. I think Jamie French is going to forge his own path. I think when Chris Jackson focuses solely on his big out-of-state target, last cycle it was Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis. Yeah. This year it's Jamie French out of Jacksonville, Florida. I think Texas more than not gets him. Now you have to have that precursor. Listen, disclaimer: NIL could change this within 24 hours of them committing. We have seen that in multiple cases in this cycle, and it's not going to be the last time we see it. But I think French, you have to understand the thing with French, he's closer to KJ Lacey and Lockett. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that matters on the end, but KJ Lacey and French have known each other for a long time. Lockett and those guys have started to get a lot closer, and DK was close to those guys too. But I think French is definitely a more gettable thing at this point. I think Texas still looks fantastic. I think they're going to have to recruit through the whistle because I think Ohio State is going to continue to push. And I think they're going to try to get an official visit during the fall. He's going to make his decision in August. KCK Lockett's going to make his decision in August. I think Texas is in a good spot for both. I don't necessarily think Doran Moore's affects it too much. If anything, it might help Texas' cause.
Does Texas, when it comes to NIL, is Texas more willing to go overboard when it comes to out-of-state prospects versus in-state? Because we look at Jamie French, we look at we look at Wingo last year, Jarrett Gibson, Cedric Baxter. These were all big-time battles that Texas was able to win, through NIL. That was a major factor in it. But now here we kind of see, oh, no, we got a budget. We can't do this. We can't do that. But is that more for the in-state guys, or do they know when, hey, we're going out of state, we're going to have to go a little bit overboard to land this guy?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think those are just particulars at this moment. I don't think it's an in-state, out-of-state thing. I think Sark has a system, and he has of how much he will go above and beyond on certain positions on certain players. And I think he does it from the inside out. And so that would mean Michael Fasusi hypothetically makes this decision in the next 6 to 8 weeks before his senior year, and at the last hour, a team comes up with a higher bid. I could see them absolutely matching that and going higher.
Yeah.
Because offensive tackle is a lot harder to find than a wide receiver. I think Sark will never have a hard time finding quarterbacks, running backs, or wide receivers. Yeah. And he knows he has got to focus a lot of that in this class on the offensive line and the defensive line. I think he just has a system, and it's worked for him so far. It's a roster management type deal that's why the culture is so good there. And so I don't necessarily think it's in-state, out-of-state. I think it's more on a position basis. And when you're talking about defensive line or offensive tackles, Texas is definitely going to match in most cases and go beyond on those.
Yeah, and same with most teams across the country, probably. One more wide receiver I want to circle back on, and that's KCK Lockett. Now, when we talked about the trio of 5 stars and Jamie French, Doran Moore, KCK Lockett was kind of I don't want to say the odd man out for Texas, but it was of the 3, we probably felt least confident in KCK Lockett to Texas. Now that Doran Moore is going the other direction, do you think that we hear more about Lockett in Texas, or is there another guy on the board that you would point to?
I think you'll hear a little bit more about Lockett in Texas. I think there's a chance they try to get him back on campus in late July for the barbecue. I believe it's the 27th or the 28th. Mm-hmm. He's making his decision on August 7th. Listen, Texas is in a great spot there. I know his family loves Texas. I know he does. That's one of the first teams that offered, one of the first places he visited. I remember meeting him almost over 3 years ago on campus before he had any stars. And proximity makes a lot of sense there. But KCK Lockett is a very smart, very gracious kid. And there have been some really good pushes from Alabama, from Texas A&M, from LSU, from Florida State, and KCK's listening to those. And so I think Texas is going to have to, again, recruit through the whistle on KCK, because I think they've positioned themselves wonderfully in that recruitment. And that decision's going down in less than a month or a month to the day, rather. But at the end of the day, I love where Texas sits there, but these other schools have made him a priority as well. And so Texas is going to have to really get their boots in the ground, and Chris Jackson's going to have to pull these guys out of the hat.
All right, Justin, you're off the hot seat. We've had a lot of Texas segments with you on this show. None of them were probably as hard as sitting down for these questions. I appreciate you coming by the Inside Scoop today.
Hey, always a pleasure, Josh.
Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.